1 year on, the war in Ukraine is at a stalemate. The brutal fight exposing Russia's surprising weakness against the strength and resolve of the Ukrainian people. We have two reports. David Martin will be along shortly, but to begin, here's Charlie D'Agata.
12 months of bloodshed following a full-scale Russian invasion, tens of thousands of troops killed on both sides. With two determined leaders, each promising victory for their side. A David and Goliath conflict dragging on and on. And yet life in Ukraine after a year of war depends entirely on where Ukrainians are trying to live it. Russia failed to capture the capital, Kyiv, where those who haven't fled are trying to carry on as normal. Many families who escaped in the early days have since returned. The war that's created 8 million Ukrainian refugees is never far, and sometimes very near. Everywhere is in missile range. One of the first strikes in Kyiv slammed into a high-rise. We rushed to the scene when it happened to report on the damage. We returned a year later to find the giant scar outside the building now healed, where we met Tatiana Leszczuk, a lawyer in Kyiv.
This room was destroyed completely.
But her anxious daughter got up early that Saturday morning. They were in the hallway when the missile hit.
I think it's God. Save her and save me and save my husband. It was very scared for me.
Well, it's brave to come back.
Thank you. I want to live in my country because it's my home.
Travel further east and the landscape changes dramatically. More evidence of a country in the grip of the biggest and bloodiest military confrontation in Europe since World War II. There's more of a military presence, more checkpoints, much more damage. And on some parts of the front line where we went this past week, the fighting, the incoming and outgoing artillery never ceases.
The troops here are getting nervous because there may be a drone flying overhead. The sound of explosions has been non-stop in this last village under Ukrainian control.
Ukraine's second city of Kharkiv is within easy range of Russian rockets. And the war feels closer because it is. Yet even here, people refuse to stop living.
Then there are the countless towns and villages like this, along the front line, or what used to be the front line, now virtually deserted, showing widespread destruction, first from when the Russians invaded, then when the Ukrainians forced them out.
Raisa Fativa was one of only a few hundred people who stayed in this village east of Kharkiv. She described waking up one morning to find Russian soldiers in the street taking up positions around her home.
That must have been terrifying. What was going through your mind?
I don't even know how to describe it, she said. It was very tough, very scary. There was no gas, no power. We were thinking of how we were going to stay alive. Fativa showed us the tiny cellar where she and her son took shelter during the fighting. I had a mattress here where I slept, she told us. She said the worst of it came when Russian soldiers withdrew and began to bombard the neighborhoods when Ukrainian troops moved in. Fighting blew out her windows, tore shrapnel throughout her property in a battle that waged for months.
So what is life like now here?
I can say we live well, but I want it all to end, for there to be peace, so there's no more shelling, because that was very scary. For now, they're surviving largely on humanitarian aid. At least they have their home and their freedom. Those Ukrainians living under Russian occupation have even less.